Hello and welcome to the Eating Disorder Therapist podcast. I'm Harriet Frew, eating disorder therapist, here to support you in overcoming disordered eating and finding peace with food. So thank you so much for being here today. So today I want to talk about working in eating disorders when you have your own eating disorder history and 5 things to consider. So maybe at the moment you are a student, or maybe you're working in another career, or maybe you're training as a therapist or a nutritionist or a dietitian or occupational health practitioner, or one of many other fields, but you're really hoping to pursue a career in eating disorders and you are keen to find out more about all of this. So I'm going to share 5 things to consider when you are navigating this path from my own experience of 20 years of working in eating disorders. So I myself was drawn to work as an eating disorders therapist very much as a wounded healer, having bulimia nervosa in my late teens and early 20s. I wished to support others in a way that I hadn't experienced myself. It was the late 90s and bulimia was barely an acknowledged condition back then, although Princess Diana did much to raise awareness. Now, I was definitely idealistic, naive, had heaps of useful enthusiasm, which spurred me on. And I certainly had some healing work to navigate myself before I was anywhere near to be supporting clients. But thankfully, I'm still in this space 20 years on, and it is one of the best life decisions I ever made. Because from my late 20s, I've had a career of absolute passion and purpose, and it's led me on an unbelievable journey of my own healing and supporting others and working with numerous incredible colleagues along the way. And I'm not alone. It's a common occurrence to be working in the eating disorders field, whether it be nutrition, therapy or movement, after walking your own recovery road. And it's hardly surprising, because having a disordered relationship with food has sadly been a rite of passage for many of us, growing up in a culture that idealizes thinness and stigmatizes people in larger bodies. I mean, this itself is a recipe for dysfunctional food relationships. So your own healing experience can bring such empathy and knowledge, because you're immediately relatable to others when you have genuinely walked the walk and emerged in one piece on the other side. It just gives people so much hope. So 5 things to consider if you're thinking of working in eating disorders and you have had your own history. So number 1, your way may not be the way. Now, there are multiple ways to treat eating disorders and multiple recovery recipes. Now, personally, I'm a psychology junkie. I love hearing people's stories and helping clients make sense of them. Now, I strongly believe in the power of talking therapy, and I passionately hold the therapy relationship as a prized container for healing. Talking therapy massively helped me, which drives my passion strongly. And I've had the privilege of supporting hundreds of people in developing understanding and insight in recovery, and this translating into long-term change. But talking therapy is not a one-size-fits-all. Some people don't like it one bit, and they benefit more from getting into the body through somatic work, or with EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, or very directive therapies such as CBTE, or other things as well. And there are many ways in which you could support people with eating disorders. You could train as a psychologist, a psychotherapist, a counselor, a nutritionist, a dietitian, a somatic practitioner, occupational health therapist, or some other route. Now, I'm a counselor by trade, but I have worked for most of my career with clinical psychologists in an NHS eating disorder service. Now, I'm unusual that I managed to land this role back in the early noughties, and it was a combination of dedication and luck. You know, a lot of luck, to be honest with you, that brought me to this place. I don't know if I had been going into the NHS these days, if I would have landed the role in the same way. Probably not. But I would really say to my younger self, and anyone looking to pursue a career in this area, to do better research. You know, I kind of winged it really and hoped for the best. And consequently, I was never paid as a clinical psychologist in the NHS, even though I've effectively done the same job for all the years. And hierarchies and hoops to jump through exist, never mind your clinical years of experience. Now, in truth, I could have gone back and retrained, but I'm not really one to tick boxes for the certificate. I am really not. I almost value the slight outlier status. And nowadays, I'm self-employed, so my qualification is far less relevant compared to my experience. But I would just say to you, it's obvious really, isn't it? But do your research and think about where you would like to work. something else I did as well was a master's in nutrition. And again, I have never really used that because throughout my career, I have always worked in psychology and I've had dietitians or nutritionists supporting me alongside. I mean, you could argue that it's still a helpful thing to have, but actually it was quite an expensive qualification to have really for the longer term, which I haven't really needed. So do gravitate towards your innate passions and perhaps what has personally helped you in recovery, because this will light a fire beneath you and this energy will ripple out profoundly to your clients as they will feel the solid belief and energy in your healing. So I think so much about healing is about energy and relationships. So if you are really behind your way of working and it has healed you, that's probably going to sort of speak volumes to your clients. Of course, you don't have to do that. It's one option. Number 2, your experience will be different. So isn't it obvious to say this? But each healing journey is unique and each client's experience should be acknowledged. Now, it's easy to assume that your own experience mirrors that of your client and to project this onto them. Now, my eating disorder experience was never much about calories, numbers, and strict adherence to routines and rituals. It was far more emotionally driven and impulsively chaotic in nature. And although body image was an issue for me, it was never central to the problem. I was actually almost relieved to gain weight and to be removed from the devastating effects of starvation. But for many of my clients, their experience is vastly different from this. For them, it's much more in the detail of numbers, and body image blocks are frequently a humongous barrier to change. So I've had to develop much passion, patience, even compassion and understanding in navigating all of this, as it would be very easy to dismiss my clients' experiences simply as they are very different from my own. Number 3, motivation. Many people that seek help for eating disorder treatment are not motivated and ready for change. Now, this is completely understandable and normal, as an eating disorder is a psychological coping strategy. Now, there will be natural ambivalence holding someone back, because the eating disorder may offer glimmers of self-worth, a way of numbing emotions, distracting from deeper pain, and offer a way to communicate when words seem futile. Now, as a healer, you could show up with buckets of inspired enthusiasm, but your client may not be ready yet. And a substantial part of your work is sitting with your client's ambivalence and working towards the process of change. Now, sometimes this can feel frustrating and like wading through treacle. As a therapist, you may fantasize that you need extra tools or skills to miraculously free them from the sticky swamp, whereas in fact, when your client finds their motivation, they will hardly need you. You will simply be a guide and encourager on the road. So there is no shortcut to finding motivation. Usually something larger than the eating disorder needs to be forefront as a magnet for change. You know, for some of my clients, it's been like having a baby or wanting to go traveling or relationship or going to uni or something compelling in life. An underlying trauma may need processing and healing first to clear that path ahead as well. Number 4, your own healing. You need to have dug deep and worked on your own healing and continue to do so, particularly if you're a therapist, because you can only take your clients to the depths that you have experienced yourself in your process. So healing doesn't only mean embracing intuitive eating and a healthy weight for your body, rather also dealing with your trauma and childhood wounds. It means understanding your projections and vulnerable trigger spots and developing healthy tools for self-care and emotional regulation. Now, we all have many blind spots, all of us, and we really have no idea how unhealed we are until we begin the work. Now, 20 years in, I'm still working on these things. And it means digging around in the messy parts of your psyche and embracing your shadow. And this is sometimes painful and uncomfortable. And it means having personal therapy and or other forms of personal development. And it's tough, but clients can sense how much you can hold and contain within the therapeutic space. And this will correlate with your own depth of healing. Working in eating disorders is vitally important to self-care and invest solidly in physical and mental well-being as a practitioner. This work can be hard and you'll be vulnerable to burnout and compassion fatigue. Number 5, your gold is your compassion and empathy. As a wounded healer, you bring therapeutic gold to the relationship. You inspire others that healing is impossible. Healing is possible. And this is a wonderful gift. The fact that you have recovered offers bright optimism and hope to others, and you have the opportunity to transform lives. And it's an incredible gift knowing that your pain has been transmuted into something else that can heal. Now, personally, I do feel that bulimia took me to the deepest, darkest places of my life, but it's also offered me a life path of extraordinary meaning and purpose from a young age. And I wholeheartedly appreciate that this is not something everyone gets to encounter. And I'm truly grateful for the hard times which have shaped my journey, and I hope to continue working in this field for years to come. So although I've recovered from bulimia over 2 decades ago, I'm still working through the deeper issues and will continue to do so whilst I'm here on earth. So are you considering working in eating disorders, or do you already? Yeah, do let me know. And you may be interested in a couple of my courses I have for professionals, Eating Disorders for Professionals and Body Image for Professionals, and they're on my website at theeatingdisordertherapist.co.uk. Okay, thank you so much for listening today. And if you enjoy this podcast, I'll be so grateful if you'd follow, rate and review, as it helps it reach more listeners. And if you would like a written version of this podcast, do subscribe to my Substack. The link is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to sharing another podcast episode with you very soon.